Good morning, everybody. As my luck would have it, I created this video yesterday afternoon, all dolled up for it. I edited it and I uploaded it for a 10 a.m. scheduling this morning. And as my luck would have it, it didn't upload, it failed. So I'm off to an appointment, I'm half ready, and I thought, you know what, let me just get this video out again. I probably have it memorized. So here we go. This is story time about the third novel I'm writing. I typically write psychological thrillers. This novel's inspiration, however, came from online reviews of a restaurant in a nearby quaint little village. And when I read the reviews of this restaurant, I was completely shocked. So I did a deep dive into this restaurant, the history of the owner, the location where it's at now, and the people in town that are complaining. At first, this restaurant started out with many influencers coming to the grand opening. Anywhere from TikTok, YouTube, Facebook influencers, a bunch of them. And they're really well known. Now, I don't know any of them, but they're really well known, and they have a massive following each on their respective channels. And I thought, wow, that's interesting because I've never heard of them. They don't live here. They traveled for this grand opening. And I thought, wow, that's really cool that this restaurant attracted all of these influencers. Wow, amazing. Now, this little quaint town nearby is very, very popular with tourists. Tourists come all over to visit this quaint town every single summer. Usually not so much in the winter, although they do have a lot of things going on in the winter, especially for children. They're very, very accommodating to families. So I can see the appeal of tourists coming here for that reason. When you want to go on vacation with a family, this is the destination spot to be. So when I started reading the reviews at first, when they first opened, now I didn't find this restaurant until months after it opened. But when I first started reading the reviews, I thought, wow, fantastic, 5 stars across the board. However, it did seem like inflated hype because if you compare it to other restaurants in town, well-established restaurants that have been here for years, the reviews didn't make sense at all because these other well-established restaurants that are just terrific, they've won awards, the chefs have won awards, and all of a sudden now this new restaurant is like beating them out in reviews. However, it just seems suspicious to me. Now, when I was in my 20s, so we're going back some time now, when I was in my 20s, there was this fabulous restaurant, and I started dining there, and the owner herself would bring over a house salad, sparkling water in a wine glass, fresh homemade bread, and I was addicted to this little restaurant in town. This was not in the quaint village, though. This was outskirts of that. But still, I got addicted. I would go there for the lemon chicken. I would go there for the ribeye with the little baby potatoes. Never had a bad meal. The atmosphere was absolutely terrific, and she had a true following of customers. But then she had a small kitchen fire, and when that happened, a food reviewer who apparently knew this owner, and they had had an out years prior in wherever they were from. Neither ladies were from this area, so they knew each other. There was history there, and the food reviewer creamed her in the newspaper. This was before the internet. So all the locals, everybody that had never been to the restaurant, that didn't even know it existed, never had a chance to eat there because they were like, I'm not eating there now. Because this food reviewer was so well known. She was very popular. She had a lot of connections. And when people saw that, they took her at face value. That taught me in my 20s never to take somebody's opinion at face value, you see. Because I ate at this restaurant, and that was not my experience at all. The food was delightful. The owner was delightful. And it just didn't make any sense to me. So when I started doing a deep dive on this new restaurant in this quaint little village, I thought something surely is off here. Now, I do know that some influencers, and I'm not saying these particular influencers, some influencers do get paid for their reviews of restaurants. It is a very competitive industry. It truly is possible that all the hype and everything is warranted about this place. However, after I saw all this, I kind of set it aside. I didn't think anything of it until somebody asked me if I knew a place to eat to bring their business associate for an early evening dinner. And I thought of this place. So I was skeptical of sending them there, but at the same time, I recommended it. I'm all about supporting new businesses in the area, especially local ones that aren't, chains. However, another person that I know said, no, don't go there. So my friends went elsewhere. But then months later, about a year later, I was perusing the reviews once again because somebody else asked, hey, where's a good place to eat out over here? We're going to go do this and that, and we want to go eat there. There are a lot of restaurants there. You can find just about anything your heart desires as far as food. I've even had alligator there. So I once again looked up this restaurant and the reviews were absolutely deplorable. Now it's all 1 stars and it's from locals. However, the other 5-star reviews are still there, but those are months prior from when they first had the grand opening. So I thought, what is going on here? Among things like, the food isn't authentic, it's frozen, or the way they present the food is disgusting. Sometimes you see that in reviews and you wonder if it's really true, or if people are just mad at something, or didn't want to overpay for something and they were charged $18 for a drink and they leave a nasty review. It's something like that. I didn't know for sure. But then I read the one that changed my course, which is the inspiration for my novel number 3. I typically write psychological thrillers. I've already finished 2 novels. This is going to be based on a true story, real events that are taking place near me in a small, quaint village. And this review was the inspiration for it. Basically, an elderly couple went into the restaurant one evening. They were going to be meeting up with a bunch of church friends. They got there first, they sat down, and they had a bit of time before the friends arrived. They ordered appetizers, and they were delighted. The taste, the smell, the waitstaff, everything was perfect. They were sipping on their lemon water. They were toasting to the great evening they were having with each other. Their friends texted, we're on our way, we're almost there, we're parking. This restaurant has a city-like atmosphere outdoors. So parking is actually across the street. And the friends were there across the street parking. So they alerted the waitstaff that their friends were almost there. The waitstaff brought out house salads that accompany every dinner meal. The husband, however, wanted a Caesar. So they obliged, they brought the Caesar, they set it before him, and like a kid on Christmas Eve, he couldn't wait to dig in. And he took his fork and he took a first bite. As the wife was delighted to see her husband enjoying his meal out, he winced and held his jaw in cheek. Her facial expression alerted the kitchen staff that could see them from afar. The head chef wiped his hands, came out into the dining area, walked up to the elderly couple, and asked if everything was okay. She said, I don't know. My husband is, struggling with something. I'm not sure what. She said, honey, are you okay? And the husband replied, "Arr, arr." And the waitstaff and the head chef were now very concerned what was going on. Is he choking? What is happening? The husband then took 2 fingers, dug into his jaw, and retrieved a hard round object. Not knowing what it was at first, the wife said to the chef, we've had an extraordinary time here. The appetizers were delicious. We've really enjoyed the atmosphere. The waitstaff has been delightful. I just don't know what's going on with this. And the husband said, it looks like a peppercorn. And the chef replied and said, oh, I'm terribly sorry, sir. That is indeed a peppercorn. It must have accidentally slipped into your Caesar salad during prep in the kitchen. I will get you a new salad. Well, the elderly wife spoke up and said, I appreciate that. I appreciate your, concern and efforts, but our friends are arriving and some of them are very elderly and I wouldn't want this to happen to them. Do you think by chance the other salads have a whole peppercorn? I wouldn't want someone to choke. And she didn't say this in a hasty, nasty way. She said it in a very concerning way. but also with respect to the chef. He immediately looked at the elderly wife. He snapped his fingers, and all of the waitstaff came running. They immediately retrieved all of the salad plates. At this point, the elderly wife thought, oh my goodness, they're so kind to check all the salads for us. But in fact, that wasn't the case at all. The head chef demanded that this elderly couple retrieve their belongings and exit out the front door immediately. The elderly wife, in shock, said, excuse me, I'm not following you. And he said, you will not express disdain from my restaurant or my food. You will get out right now and never come back. The elderly couple thought at first, this can't be real, this can't be happening. They tried to persuade the chef that, oh, by no means were they trying to insult him or his cooking or the restaurant. In fact, they were having a great time. Nonetheless, he made them get up. The wife, barely able to grab her purse, was shuffled out the door with him hot on their heels. They were having trouble walking. They were in shock, denial, and they couldn't believe what was going on, with all the other tables full of patrons watching on in horror. As they approached the doorway, they could see their friends standing on the sidewalk. They felt embarrassed. They kind of put their hand up to stop them from coming through the door. But the elderly husband, being the true gentleman he is, reached into his pocket and pulled out some cash. He waved it up to get the attention of their waiter. And when the waiter saw, he started over. The intention was to leave a tip regardless of what happened. But the head chef wouldn't allow it. He said, put your money away. It's no good here. You will leave now or I will call the police. The elderly couple, in true shock, walked out of the door with their head in shame. They had no idea why this was happening to them. As shocking as that experience must have been for these dear folk, there is more that's going on that I think is worth mentioning. This restaurant is in a row of other really well-known businesses in the area. And like I said, it's a tourist destination. However, people do live in very nice homes on the outskirts of this area. Okay, this area has bookstores, ice cream parlors, shopping, dress boutiques, the works. You would be hard-pressed not to enjoy yourself in this quaint little village. So it came as a shock when this restaurant moved in and actually built a whole outdoor music entertainment arena. And then the horns began. The owner brings in a big brass band weekly. They have live entertainment 4 nights a week, but it goes well into the wee hours of the next day. So the townspeople were stunned. They went there to meet with the owner and they said, look, we appreciate your business here. We love to support local businesses. We're glad you're here instead of a void and vacancy in that building. However, we have families to raise. We have jobs to go to. Prior establishments that were there have always abided by the noise pollution rules here, rules of etiquette that maybe don't exist in a town official ordinance, but we all have mutual respect for one another. So if you would kindly please limit the noise until 9, 10 o'clock at night, not 2 in the morning. And the owner said, this is my vision for this small village. And these are my rules. And too bad if you don't like it. The people, distraught, feeling betrayed, they no longer felt like this restaurant or the owner was a welcomed addition to their community. They now feel like this restaurant and owner are a betrayal to the town. I've been doing a lot of research for this. When I did a deep dive, there is more to this story than just these bad reviews. It is unbelievable, and that's why I decided to write my next novel around this. Thank you so much for watching today. Take care.